Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 364 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Friday, September 20th, the end of a rather eventful week for the Miami Dolphins, 2 days before they get back to action against the Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field, minus Tua Tagovailoa in the lineup. He will be there and accompanying his teammates, however, and to discuss the matchup, Tua, Skyler, Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and all that's involved in the next stretch of games for the Miami Dolphins. We are joined by South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist Dave Hyde. Dave, how are you, sir?
Well, don't forget Geno Smith, sort of the forgotten, a good quarterback in the NFL now. I'm writing about him for Sunday, why he's on my mind. But anyways, a lot of characters in this one, not necessarily the ones we expected.
Fun nugget about Geno Smith. His last start against the Miami Dolphins, almost 10 years ago, December 2014. Geno Smith had a perfect 158.3 passer rating to spoil the Lamar Miller 97-yard touchdown run team record, and the Dolphins got beat 37-24 on that day.
Wow, I got to look. I talked to his high school coach who said he had a great game. Now, your mind, the deep recesses of your mind, I'm not sure I want to travel in there. You know,
I have good resources. But I do have a good memory for certain things. I did remember he had a perfect passer rating. I went back to look at the exact date, even though I kind of had an idea of what it was, and it confirmed what I had thought. Very interesting, though, and it's the last time he's played him. That's the crazy part. Of course, the Dolphins and Seahawks only see each other every 4 years, and also the last time the Dolphins played in Seattle, also a very, very eventful day, because this was the day you had the kneeling before the game. Kenny Stills, Jelani Jenkins, Arian Foster, and Michael Thomas. And the Dolphins lost 12-10 as heavy underdogs, and led, in fact, and I believe the Seahawks converted not one but 2 fourth downs on their game-winning drive. So different circumstances here. This is all about, can the Dolphins regroup? Can the Dolphins regroup without Tua? And where do you stand? Let's go big picture first, where the Dolphins are right now.
Well, big picture is we're in our first crisis mode of the season. Easy to say. 4 games. If you were to pick any 4 games to lose your starting quarterback, it would be these 4. I mean, you got Seattle, Tennessee at home, New England, and Indianapolis after a bye week. These would be the 4 you'd pick. Across the league, people are winning with backup quarterbacks. You got Green Bay gritted out a completely different win than they probably expect with Jordan Love. They went a different way. Pittsburgh, technically their backup quarterback. They brought in 2 could-bes, but it is their backup quarterback. Same in Minnesota with Sam Darnold. So my question is, did the Dolphins prepare themselves for this properly? And that's sort of what's on the line here over these 4 games, not just one game, although we'll all react to one game depending. We'll have to see how it plays out. But over these 4 games, where is Skylar Thompson? Who is he? And we really don't have much of a sample size. I didn't play last year. He played at the end of his rookie year, where handcuffed. They really put him in the baby stroller to make the playoffs against the Jets, and then there was a Buffalo game in the playoffs that, it was a bizarre game. But so we don't know much about Skylar Thompson other than he didn't look that good in preseason. You didn't walk away saying, okay, we got confidence the guy can run the system.
And then this is where I would say that the preseason should not be an indicator, or should not be used as much of a gauge, because the flip side is Bo Nix looked like a world beater in the preseason, and he has struggled big time for the Broncos. And like I said, the reality is we do not know. I just wrote a column on Miami Dolphins SI. Basically, my premise, and I could be wrong. I believe you wrote something very similar to this, that the next 4 games to me are a referendum to basically the Dolphins' approach in the offseason.
Yeah.
Where they basically went, we love where we're at. We love everybody. So here's big money, Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, at the cost of neglecting, if maybe that's too harsh a word, but for all intents and purposes, neglecting or not addressing better the guard position, the interior of the defensive line, and most prominently here, Skylar Thompson. Because if Skylar Thompson flops, and again, we don't know, but if he flops, that tells you that the Dolphins, who have their eyeballs on him more than anybody else, massively miscalculated what they had and did a poor job of preparing for what was not a shocker that Tua would miss at least some regular season time.
Yeah, and let's this could be a fun story. This is a great opportunity for Skylar Thompson. He's got all the resources. He's got a great supporting cast with him, assuming Raheem, we'll see how everybody, how everybody plays, much less, but you got Tyreek Hill, you got Jalen Waddle are going to be there. You're going to have a chain's going to be there. You got a tight end, a couple tight ends. The left tackle's playing, which is an important part. So, this is a great opportunity for him. And I'm with you. This is a sort of a litmus test over my thought. And to Mike McDaniel's credit, his first year, he had one job, really, besides winning one job. Who is Tua? Who is the organization needed to know who he defined Tua in such a good way and brought out his game. And but the question became, did he to build Tua's confidence and to walk hand in hand with him and make a partnership with him. I think they should be past that now, where Tua should be confident enough they could have brought in a veteran quarterback to back him up. That's for a contending team, a team with contention on their mind. That would have been the thing to do. And I wrote a column about it in preseason saying, where's Ryan Tannehill? Now it turns out it looks like Tannehill's waiting for a job where he could step in and play the rest of the way, which, who knows? We don't know about where this is going with Tua. We know he's out for 4 games. He might be out longer. We don't know.
Correct. Before we continue the discussion, just some bookkeeping here. The injury report for the Dolphins, the final injury report has wide receiver Grand Dubose as out, and then Raheem Mostert is doubtful, and also fellow wide receiver Malik Washington, the rookie 6th-round pick, is doubtful as well with a quadriceps. That leaves 3 active wide receivers, Hill, Waddle, and Braxton Berrios, which means very possibly Eric Ezukama and the Eskridge, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks, would get elevated unless the Dolphins want to go with 4. Then it would be either or. Going back to the other point also, and this is not going to go over well with certain folks, but this notion that, again, because you go from Tua to Skylar automatically means you lose. To me, first of all, let's look at the Jacksonville game. They basically won because of, they had like the long play to Waddle, the touchdown play to Tyreek, and the Javon Holland forced fumble. The 2 long throws, are we really looking at those completions and saying there's no way in hell that Skylar makes those throws? I mean, let's be honest here. And this is a team that's built with the speed on the outside. You got Achane producing things. It's not like it's all on Skylar. His job is to facilitate. Don't lose the game. Don't make bad mistakes. But this, I never, I've been pretty consistent about saying while Tua is a great fit for the offense and maybe he orchestrates it better than most, it's not like it can't be run effectively if it's somebody else in the.
Well, it's not like Patrick Mahomes is going out of the offense, or Josh Allen might be even a better in that the whole weight of the franchise is on Josh Allen. I mean, Tua's been a great fit for this team, but he, general manager's poll, he's ranked 14th in the league on ESPN. So it's the question is the drop off from him, really. That's the question here. More than, everybody knows they're losing something. The question is, how much are they losing? And again, we don't have a read on Skylar. He might come in and light it up, or he comes in and plays like a 3rd-year guy who was a late round pick who hasn't played much. And that's waiting to be written.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's the thing. And I think a lot of people, again, because of it looked ugly in the preseason, because we kept reporting that in training camp it didn't look good. Well, how many reps in training camp is he taking with Waddle and Hill, who practiced very little this summer? It's just not the same. And in the preseason, those guys didn't play either. He didn't have Teron Armstead on the offensive line. It's just not the same.
To me, the other question on that is, it seems like going back to the end of the last year and the start of this season, teams have figured a way to take away some of the things the Dolphins like to do well. Okay. And we're now, it could be the Dolphins, like a lot of teams look across the league, offenses haven't found their gear yet. And that could be the Dolphins case here too. But going back to the end of last year and these first couple games, it's not easy. It's not been easy for the Dolphins offense to move with Tua. And so here you go across the country to a Seattle team that is, Seattle's trying to define who it is too. They beat Denver. They beat New England. Who are they? So we'll see. You have two teams really the Dolphins are trying to find an identity for a short term, hopefully, assuming Tua gets back. But it's an important stretch for the season.
Yeah, and again, Seattle's 2-0, and then I had Brandon Kane, who is the host of the Hawks Nest podcast in Seattle, on this week, or actually we did a simulcast. And basically my question to him was, is Seattle a legit 2-0 team, or is it because they played Denver and New England? And if you look at the quarterbacks they faced Bo Nix making his first NFL start, and rookies usually making their first NFL start rarely are good. And then the second was Jacoby Brissett, who Dolphin fans all know very well, who is a journeyman. So again, to me, they're a very, I wouldn't say soft 2-0, but it's not necessarily an indication we're looking at, at a reincarnation of the Legion of Boom of 2013.
I will say, here's one thing in Skylar Thompson's favor this week, in that Mike McDonald's offense in Seattle is the same offense. I've been listening to the Seattle players, and they were more outspoken about it than the Dolphins players when they were asked, which they're saying it's the same defense. We're going to be running against the same defense, and it works both ways, I get. But for a guy coming into his first start, he's going to have seen this defense in practice, and obviously there are nuances or things they do differently, et cetera, et cetera. But the general scheme, at least to have a handle on going into this game.
Correct. No, and the Seahawks have good personnel. This notion, I know the point spread started off like at 5.5. It's down to 4.5 or something like that. And I don't buy this notion that the Dolphins don't have a shot. I really don't.
No, of course they have a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have. Look, if they believe they're a contending team, as we heard all preseason, right? You should be able to survive. Go into, like Green Bay did, go into a turtle shell mode, but you should be able to win some games again. Again, this 4-game stretch, not playing. It's not like the end of the season when they're playing a lot of teams that should be in contention. They're playing teams whose aspiration is to make the playoffs, to eke into the playoffs.
Yeah, you look after this week, especially the next 3 weeks, I've one win combined, and that's New England and Cincinnati. And I will tell you this, I referenced the last time the Dolphins played at Seattle, the challenge, the task ahead looks a lot less challenging now than it did in 2016. Because remember, this was Adam Gase's first year. Jay Ajayi was left behind because he was having a pissy fit because he was either lost his starting job there in Foster or whatever. And then the Seahawks, I'd forgotten about that part. We're talking about the game. And then the Seahawks were still a really, really, really good team with most of the Legion of Boom. Russell Wilson was still Russell Wilson. And the Dolphins almost pulled it out with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So this notion that, all of a sudden and the Dolphin players were very quick to talk about how much more resilient they're going to be this year. They have the leadership council. This is our team. We're going to take it upon our shoulders when things go wrong, that we're going to rise to the challenge. Well, there it is, folks.
Yeah. And look, Seattle has some strong components. They have Geno Smith is underrated. I mean, he's better than you would think of in his first. Well, I mean, he's an average NFL quarterback. Okay, I'm not saying he's great, but people probably don't see him that way. And then you got 3 very good receivers that he's thrown to. Okay, and so as much of the questions on the offense right now, especially, it goes to the defense too. They can't expect this offense to need 30 points to win this game or something like that. They've got to, and there's some work to be done for this defense. Go for it, Alan.
We have a little musical interlude in the background here. No, and yeah, the defense is now is the time to step up, and there's no injuries on defense. The 3 players who are question marks are all on offense, so there is no excuse. And on top of the fact that Seattle is playing without its stud running back Kenneth Walker the third, so you take away like a big part of their offense. Yeah, they have the 3 star wide receivers. Well, you have one of the highest paid cornerbacks. No, the highest paid cornerback in the NFL is, I think he's still number 1, Ramsey.
Yeah.
You have Javon Holland, who would like to become one of the highest paid safeties in the NFL. Kendall Fuller, who you got in the offseason. So there is no excuse. And the defense for the first 2 games in terms of yardage, they're 4th in the NFL in total yards allowed. Against Buffalo, however, situationally, they weren't good. Because they didn't respond to no sacks, no takeaways, and they didn't respond when they were put on short fields. And especially you had the pretty bad play showing on that 49-yard touchdown run by James Cook. Okay, well, some of the mistakes can get cleaned up. Now is the time to step up and come up with a big performance.
Yeah, we're 2 games into the year, so we don't really have a good handle on exactly who the Dolphins are, their strength, their weaknesses. So we're going to feel that out. But again, this to me is their first crisis where you should be able to weather a backup quarterback for a short term in the NFL. If you're a really good team playing against, not a really good team. I get it. It's a long trip. Seattle, historically, when they're a good team, has been a tough place to play. But they aren't that team anymore. So this should be a chance for the Dolphins to tough out a win.
And this is where you can go. We can go historically here. The aforementioned 2016 season, Matt Moore had to come in late in the season after Ryan Tannehill sustained that knee injury to win some big games on the stretch. He won, or the Dolphins with him at quarterback won a Saturday night game against the Jets. This Saturday night game, and then they won another game against Buffalo the following week to make the playoffs. 1993, after Dan Marino leaves, catastrophe, the sky is falling. The next week, Scott Mitchell has a really, really good performance against KC, AFC Offensive Player of the Week. In fact, I think Matt Moore also was AFC Offensive Player of the Week in his first start. So the trend continues. Skylar Thompson will be the AFC Offensive Player of the Week for his performance against Seattle. There you go.
We don't have to go all the way back to 72 with Earl Morrow replacing Bob Greasy either, do we? Or the tandem system, Woodstruck, where it wasn't necessarily a backup because it was an equal starter almost. But the point being, this shouldn't be foreign territory for the Dolphins. Now, to me, there's an emotional aspect to it all. You had the Tyreek Hill incident in week 1. You had Tua getting hurt in week 2. There's a lot of things that are directing this team's attentions and energies and emotions away from, possibility. Now, what the leaders of this team have to do, and again, we've heard about the leadership council. We've heard that Mike McDaniel say it's the players' team. They got to keep everybody pointed to a win here. They got they forget to not being available. They have enough. As Eric Spoelstra would say, down 4 starters, we have enough. And that would be that should be the Heat's mantra right now.
Heat, the Dolphins, you're in the hoops mode. Here's what I would tell you also. Correct. If they're not good enough to win, then maybe we can forget about how good they were. And you know what? Here's another one. 2008. I'm coming up with all these examples. 2018. Ryan Tannehill goes out. Brock Osweiler comes in, has his career best performance, 380 yards. I just looked that up against the Chicago Bears in a game they won in overtime. So
we won't get into the rest of the Brock Osweiler era or the Jay Cutler era, but that can show you what can happen if you got the wrong guy. I mean, or over an extended stretch too.
No, but there's a precedent as far as the first start for a guy coming in.
Yeah.
Again, it didn't work out. Of course, we could go back to 2022 and point out it didn't work like that for Teddy Bridgewater, who was done after one play against the Jets. But that was kind of flukish.
Yeah, that was. I still don't understand that play or call or any of it. So,
which one? Him getting pulled out of the game?
Yeah,
It was an overreaction to his concussion.
Overreaction. As there might be. You know, at this point with Tua, everybody's playing doctor with Tua, you know, and no one was just saying they got all the information here. Let them handle it however they're going to handle it, and the team's got to move on. Now, there's a second component to this. The larger component is if you want to pull back, you know, to 10,000 feet for this organization, is they got to make moves from now on with the idea this can happen anytime. I get that he played all last year, and all of a sudden everybody's saying he's healed, he's fine. You know, he's proved. You know, you got concussions, and you're all of a sudden. To me, they're in a mode now where they got to find a high end or a young. They got to make an investment on another quarterback.
Of course, this is where I could mention the Chase Daniel suggestion. Chase Daniel, former NFL backup quarterback, who's now an analyst for Fox, who threw out the idea of the Carolina Panthers trading Bryce Young to the Rams. Yeah, I'm going to throw it out there.
Is that where I didn't know where that came from?
There you go.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. Why would you want a guy who cannot play, who's is giving up on him in 2 games into his second year?
Well, here's and I'll explain the rationale. So Bryce Young to the Rams, the Panthers Panthers getting a 2nd-round pick from the Dolphins, a 3rd-round pick from the Rams, and the Dolphins getting from the Rams Matthew Stafford. And the rationale for the Rams making the move would be they're resetting. Stafford is expensive. They'd rather reset their salary cap, get his salary off the books. And Sean McVay's a QB whisperer who can salvage Bryce Young. That's the rationale there.
Yeah, so the Dolphins should get another high-paid. I mean, I know Stafford's got a big contract. How they would fit that in, I don't know. But his age, he's on the way out. You know, maybe he has a good year or two. You would do that? You would make that move?
Except here's the thing, though. A lot of this contract, he restructured his contract in the offseason. The signing bonus is the Rams' responsibility. That doesn't go over. So the salary cap hit, I think I saw, was maybe like $24 million or something to that effect, which is high, and the Dolphins don't necessarily have that kind of space. So I don't think it works logistically. But if you could get Matthew Stafford and make it work financially, why not? That dude can play.
Oh, he can play. Would he want to do that? I guess the Rams season looks done right now. So you like that move then, huh?
Matthew Stafford from the Dolphins standpoint, Matthew Stafford for a 2. Yeah, I like that move. But again, if Tua is going to come back, how does that fit into the whole big picture thing? And it really doesn't.
I'm talking the offseason. They got to start thinking this stuff. Can you make a move right now? Would you look, if you could get Matthew Stafford and fit him in? I got to admit, I haven't looked at his salary and all that. But would the Rams be wanting to take that hit? There's a lot of moving parts into that, and it's hard to imagine that getting done.
No, it doesn't make sense.
It's fun to talk about.
Yeah, because they would take the hit of the signing bonus being like all, what's the word I'm looking for? All consolidated into like right now. So it doesn't make a lot of sense from there. No, and to your point, this is where if Skylar Thompson does a good job or even better, lights it up, then the Dolphins don't necessarily have to make a move moving forward to protect themselves better. This is where if Skylar falls flat, then they have to upgrade the backup quarterback position because, again, as you mentioned, when Tua returns, we're assuming he's returning. When he returns to the field, it's going to be like every time he's about to get contact, it's going to be kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this and who is Tyler Huntley too? I mean,
he's a former Pro Bowl quarterback.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, this is a four game sample size for Skyler.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and obviously we're going to react a lot to game one, but it's 4 games, and we'll see at the end of that where he's at and where the Dolphin planning is at.
Was there any doubt in your mind that Tua would wind up on IR?
Was there any? Only because they have that bye week in there, and look, he wasn't going to play this game. Obviously, he wasn't going to play the second game. That's a Monday night game. Can you imagine the national conversation going into that game and this is beyond, talking to, doctors who talk about the most important thing is an extended rest after this, getting the rest right. So that was probably too soon anyways, but you throw in just the nightmare of everybody talking about concussions on Monday Night Football. And then they have a bye week. So I thought, there's a chance for Indianapolis. That would be, 4 weeks out. I thought, so that was my question, that do they put him on IR or not? But, they got to follow, it takes a burden off to his mind, literally, that he doesn't have to be thinking, okay, I could come back this game. I could come back this game. He knows he's out. And so in some sense, there's a more peaceful, I'm sure for him, feeling of these next few weeks.
Yeah. And I think if ever there was a case, where you need to err on the side of caution, this was it.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to ask you, though, where do you sit on the idea of the NFL maybe gently, however subtly, kind of suggesting, like, put him on the shelf?
No, they can suggest whatever they want, but it's his decision, his family's decision.
I meant on IR. I didn't mean necessarily for
on
him.
IR. You know what? I don't think the Dolphins need. If there's one thing that we've discovered, maybe not at the start of this concussion stuff with Mike McDaniel when he was starting and Tua wobbled off the field and then he played the next game and we were like, whoa, what's going on here? But if one thing we can appreciate about Mike McDaniel's tenure, that episode put aside, is he's going to err on the side of getting players healthy. I mean, there rarely is the time you hear a player rushed back. It's more we're gonna play the long game and look at give them more rest. So I don't think the league would get involved in something. I really don't. They wouldn't get in teams' business like this.
No, fair enough. On the subject of protecting players, please, Dolphins, if the score gets out of hand, get your starters out of the game, like David Long Jr. and Jordan Brooks playing every single solitary defensive snap against Buffalo makes zero sense to me.
Devon Chain 29 touches. I mean,
yeah,
I get they were down a couple running backs, but
he doesn't need touches in the fourth quarter when they're down 21.
Definitely not. So.
Okay, before I let you go, Dave Hyde, sorry to mean to cut you off. Before I let you go, Dave Hyde, what is your prediction? I believe has already appeared in print.
It has, yeah. And for all my talk of, and I do believe this is going to be a tight game, and the Dolphins will have their chances to win. I'm just going with Seattle 20-17, just because, Seattle's 2-0. They've won a couple close games. They're not a great team. They're at home, and the Dolphins, for all their questions from the first couple weeks, you throw in a backup quarterback in. So I'm picking Seattle.
Okay. Mine officially comes out tomorrow on Miami Dolphins on SI. For now, I will just say, this notion that the Dolphins are doomed because it's Skyler quarterback to me is ridiculous. So I don't know. I'll leave it at that for now.
Oh, a tease. I'm gonna have to look at your article.
That's what we call them. That's what we call it in the biz. It's a tease. On that note, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast as usual. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Want to thank my guest host again, Dave Hyde from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Find his work at sunsentinel.com. The Twitter handle, the X handle is at Dave Hyde Sports, HYDE. That's going to wrap it up. Dave, thanks again. And
thanks, Alan. Good.
All right.